What on earth happened to our lemon chews? Miles Bradford grumbled under his breath, his gaze fixed on the towering pile of customer complaints cluttering his desk. Once they held the title of the top-selling bag throughout the entire state. Miles launched this company without relying on investor funds or an impressive diploma. In the humble confines of his garage, he and his brother began their journey, experimenting with sugar and fruit juice until they stumbled upon a recipe that resonated perfectly. 15 years later, they boasted 15 facilities dedicated to candy production and packaging throughout the Midwest. Yet recently, an unsettling sensation lingered. Negative feedback was on the rise. One batch was contaminated with mold. Another had candy that had partially melted and clumped together. Some returns even originated from prominent retailers. His team delivered reports and spreadsheets, yet none provided the insights he sought. "I need boots on the ground," he instructed his assistant. "Not another presentation. I wish to experience it firsthand." He selected Facility 9, a moderately sized plant situated 2 hours away from headquarters. It had neither received any internal accolades nor attracted significant grievances, merely existing in a state of mediocrity, which rendered it the ideal setting for concealment. Miles underwent a complete transformation. He had shaved his beard. His distinctive glasses were swapped out for transparent contacts. He colored his hair a muted shade of brown. He donned heavy, old-fashioned work boots and a bright vest emblazoned with the name Doug. No one at Facility 9 had ever encountered him. He had only been to 6 of the 15 plants in person. Most of the recent additions to the team were completely unaware of his appearance. The district manager, a clever individual named Ellis, assisted in organizing the cover. "We're a bit understaffed on the packaging line," Ellis mentioned. "That will be your starting point. They believe you're just a temporary hire from an agency." The structure exuded an aroma reminiscent of sweetness and polish. The walls were adorned with vibrant posters showcasing bursts of fruity candy and whimsical cartoon characters. Yet beneath the vibrant promotions, the operation appeared to be under pressure. The machines operated at an intense heat. Employees hurried swiftly, excessively rapid. A petite figure with a gravelly voice and a clipboard greeted him at the entrance. "Text you the temporary one?" she inquired, her gaze fixed elsewhere. "Indeed, that's me, Doug. My name is Wendy. I oversee the operations on the floor. Please refrain from touching anything until I give you the go-ahead." "Understood. Understood." She approached everything with a serious demeanor. There was neither a smile nor a greeting. She commanded with the authority of a seasoned leader, directing him toward a bustling conveyor belt brimming with colorful, wrapped hard candies. "You will be examining wraps. Items that are ripped or damaged should be placed in the red bin. All that is good belongs in the tray." Miles nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. It had been more than 10 years since he had engaged in this type of practical work. The initial moments were chaotic. He let 2 trays slip from his grasp, almost sending a bin tumbling over in the process. The woman beside him, a tall and reserved colleague named Tyra, offered a nod and assisted him in restacking it. On the initial day, Tyra inquired, "Indeed, quite the chaos, isn't it? There's no need for concern. You'll understand soon enough. Just make sure Wendy doesn't catch you off guard." As the hours unfolded, he became aware of details. Employees bypassed their breaks. Candy featuring visibly flawed and crumpled wrappers. Occasionally, the delightful, gooey centers found their way into the desirable trays. He noticed Wendy casting a quick look his way, yet she remained silent. On one occasion, she took it upon herself to wheel a bin of rejects into the back room. During lunch, Miles found himself seated with Tyra and a young man named Ramon, who was responsible for the caramel line. "Folks appear to be quite tense," he remarked, attempting to sound nonchalant. "They seem weary," Ramon remarked. "For the past 3 weeks, we've been operating with a reduced team. We were instructed to double pack in order to fulfill the quotas. Why did one person resign while 2 others were let go? No new hires have been brought in, just temporary workers, and they don't stick around for long." Tyra stated bluntly, "Why do the others get fired? Not quickly enough." That's what Wendy shared with us. Returning to the floor, he began to observe Wendy more intently. She didn't merely oversee, she lingered closely. She would suddenly appear behind the employees, urging them to pick up the pace with a sharp, Command, only to vanish into the back room moments later. At approximately 3 o'clock, Miles encountered something that caused a knot to form in his stomach. Wendy unveiled a container filled with discarded lemon chews, their centers oozing, wrappers crumpled, and some even fused together as if by adhesive. She refrained from tossing them. She maneuvered them to the side table, extracted new plastic, wrappers, and began the meticulous process of hand re-wrapping them. One by one, Miles closed his eyes briefly. Could he really be witnessing this? A youthful employee, perhaps around 19, made his way towards her. Hey, didn't those originate from the reject bin? Wendy averted her gaze, completely ignoring him. They are satisfactory. Several of them were simply flattened. We are ensuring that every product is utilized effectively. Do you want ours next week or not? The child fell into silence. Miles continued to observe. She meticulously sealed at least 100 lemon chews, carefully packed them into boxes designated for retail, and marked them as cleared. He experienced a wave of nausea. He finished his shift at 5. His hands were coated in a mix of sweetness and perspiration. As he made his exit, he encountered Tyra once more, who acknowledged him with a subtle nod. "Are you okay?" she inquired. Indeed, feeling quite weary. Yet he was more than merely fatigued. He was seething with rage and so much more, feeling let down. He established this company with the belief that candy ought to spread happiness. It ought to be secure. This promises to be enjoyable. In one of his own facilities, someone was jeopardizing customer trust merely to achieve greater production levels. He wasn't prepared to reveal his true identity, not at this moment. He craved something greater. He had to determine whether this was merely an individual or perhaps something grander. The following morning, Miles made his entrance early, strolling through the side gate typically used by the temps. The loading dock thrummed with activity, forklifts rumbling, crates shifting, and voices reverberating against the concrete walls. He lowered his head and hurried along, anxious to return to the floor before anyone could pose any inquiries. He entered a new queue, this time for caramel twists. Grover, a lean man in his 50s, gestured towards a location near the end of the conveyor. "You're engaged in tray stacking. Stack 10 trays high, secure them with shrink wrap, and then carefully roll them over to the hold rack." Miles acknowledged and set about his task. It involved more physicality than the lemon chew line, with a continuous cycle of bending and lifting. In just 20 minutes, perspiration drenched his collar. Yet it was not the task that drew him in. It was the cadence that captivated him. Grover's crew toiled in a hushed atmosphere. Silence reigns with no distractions, no melodies, and an unwavering rhythm. All moved as if guided by an unseen force, while Grover lingered behind, arms folded, across his chest. "That makes 9, Doug. I require 10. Avoid short stacking." He remained calm. There was no necessity for him to do so. His voice carried the monotony of someone who had repeated the same phrase countless times, each instance yielding the same outcome. After approximately an hour, Miles moved a crate aside and glimpsed something that caused him to hesitate. A young woman, perhaps in her early 20s, was engaged in her task using only one hand. Her other wrist was swathed in gauze, cradled gently against her chest. She fought to maintain her pace, spilling a tray every few minutes. Grover cast a fleeting look but remained still. "Maintain your rhythm, Marla. No one is receiving any special privileges today." Miles blurted out, "She's hurt." Grover pivoted. "She is still able to walk. If she's present and on the clock, she can assemble trays." "Are you looking to take her place, Doug?" Marla kept her gaze fixed downward. She brushed the sweat from her brow with her strong hand and pressed on. During the break, Miles sought her out by the vending machines. "What occurred with your wrist?" She mentioned that she strained it last week, casually leaning against the wall. "The machine has become stuck. I extended my hand to remove it. It wasn't properly shut down. Have you submitted the report?" Her gaze fell to the ground. "Attempted." Wendy remarked that if it wasn't damaged, it wasn't worth the effort to file. "I was told that I'd receive more shifts if I kept quiet." Miles tightened his jaw. "That's not right." She chuckled softly and with a hint of resentment. "Welcome aboard." Allow it to unfold naturally. Returning to the floor, he observed another detail, something understated. A few of the caramel wrappers bore minuscule punctures, almost imperceptible. As he reached for one, he found that the caramel within had solidified into a brittle mass. He marked it and handed it over to Grover. "This one is not quite right." Grover hardly glanced. "Remains within specifications. If it's not leaking, it's out of here." Miles examined the box. The expiration label indicated a time frame of 4 months ahead. There's no chance the candy inside could still be good after all this time. During lunch, he found himself seated next to a middle-aged man named Hector, who was employed in maintenance. Miles extended half of his sandwich to him. Hector accepted it with a nod. "You're fortunate to be involved in packaging. I find myself summoned to the same stuck motor every couple of days. It won't be replaced." Miles scowled. "What's stopping us? It requires financial investment. They prefer I cover it with tape and hope it holds up for the duration of the shift." "Is the corporate team aware?" Hector arched an eyebrow. "The corporate presence is absent here. You're the first unfamiliar presence I've encountered in months." Miles remained silent. Post-lunch, he inspected the back room. He maintained a relaxed demeanor, strolling leisurely, feigning interest in locating a mop station. Within, he discovered a line of containers marked QC Hold. Within them lay ruined candy melts, fractures and discolorations. Several exhibited mold spots. He snapped a picture with the throwaway phone he had received for this assignment. He proceeded to examine the labels. 3 of the boxes bore the label indicating they were set for repack, with approval from shift supervision. His stomach churned once more. As the afternoon waned, he found himself assigned to the fruit chew. And there he encountered Lenny, a tall figure with an anxious chuckle and a visage that seemed perpetually unsettled. "Are you Doug?" he inquired. "Wendy asked me to demonstrate the process we use for the wrap checks." Lenny guided him through the sensor lights, the bin system, and the reject chute. "At times they get stuck. If they happen to, just give it a nudge. Only call it in if it exceeds a backup of 5 feet. Miles scowled. "Shouldn't we consider shutting it down if it gets jammed?" Lenny pondered, scratching his head thoughtfully. "That's what we learned during our training sessions. However, Wendy believes we waste too much time pausing. She prefers that we simply continue on our way. Has anyone sustained injuries while doing that?" "Not yet," Lenny replied, his voice lacking assurance. Miles toiled at the line until the end of the night. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Wendy called the crew together by the dock. "Pay attention," she commanded, her tone cutting through the air. "Tomorrow we have an unexpected audit window. It could be from corporate or a vendor. No matter who it is, maintain your focus. Keep the output high and refrain from speaking out. Understood?" No one replied. Wendy's gaze swept over the gathering. I acknowledged it. A handful of voices murmured in agreement. Miles remained motionless, observing her intently. He sensed a transformation within himself, not merely anger, but a profound sense of duty. This was more than mere mismanagement. This posed a significant risk. Overlooked injured workers, rewrapping tainted sweets, devices operating outside of safe parameters, and all of it upheld by intimidation. He strolled over to his locker, removed the vest, and took a moment to sit on the bench. The atmosphere was infused with a sweet metallic aroma. Tyra walked by, gently massaging her shoulder. "Your expression suggests you've encountered something unexpected." Miles gazed at her. "Indeed I have." "Are you really going to give up this soon?" He shook his head in disbelief. "Negative. I believe it's impossible for me to turn my back on this." She cast him a lingering glance, then nodded subtly before exiting through the door. Miles lingered, patiently observing as the floor emptied around him. He proceeded to contact the district manager. "Ellis," he remarked, "please come out here first thing tomorrow, discreetly and without any notice. Also, please involve HR." The following morning, Facility 9 buzzed with an artificial vibrancy. Individuals hurried along, expressions strained, as though an unspoken alert had been triggered. Rumors circulated that a representative from the corporate office could be making an appearance. The air was charged with an unspoken anxiety, palpable and almost savory, though no one could pinpoint the source or the moment it began. Miles came in with the initial group of workers, this time designated to the labeling station located at the rear of the floor. From that vantage point, he could easily observe both packaging lines and the supervisor's office. Ellis was set to make an appearance around mid-morning, quietly entering through the side entrance alongside HR. They would remain hidden until he provided the cue. The strategy was straightforward. Watch closely for the perfect opportunity, then take action. Miles donned his gloves and began the meticulous task of labeling sealed trays filled with a variety of fruit chews. The device next to him coughed intermittently, producing text that was either misaligned or barely legible. Whenever the line came to a halt and someone made manual adjustments to the roller, there were no texts sent out and no one recorded the issue. A man beside him tapped the machine with a flat palm and remarked, "Print heads are dying. It's been this way for a week now." "What occurs when it fails entirely?" Miles inquired. "They'll likely just opt for stick-ons. It may take more time, but Wendy prefers that over closing the line. She has a strong aversion to inactivity." Miles nodded, his gaze sweeping across the floor. Wendy was absent from her regular spot. Instead, she found herself in the break room, standing rigidly by the coffee machine, her arms crossed tightly. A young employee, perhaps in her early 20s, stood opposite her, clearly unsettled. "No, that's not what I said," Wendy retorted sharply. "You seem to have misinterpreted my words. I specifically asked you not to enter wearing that jacket." "It's unacceptable. We can't have customers believing we allow our staff to work in such poor conditions." The young woman, small in stature with expressive, deep-set eyes, clutched her coat tightly around her. "If that's the only one available, then consider borrowing another, or simply go without it. You find yourself on the floor, not out on the street." Does image hold significance? Miles withdrew from his machine, his heart racing. He edged nearer, just within earshot. "All right, it's time to head home for today. Return when you're ready to make a good impression. I won't be going through this with you once more." The girl's eyes filled with tears, yet she remained silent. She pivoted and exited through the rear without clocking out. Miles had witnessed more than enough. He strode across the floor, moving beyond the caramel line, beyond the QC bins. He pressed on relentlessly until he arrived at the supervisor's office. Wendy sat at her desk, fingers dancing over the keyboard as she input data into a spreadsheet, headphones resting casually around her neck. He swung the door open. "You can't. Just walk in here," she said, her gaze fixed elsewhere. "If the chute is stuck, inform Grover. That's not my focus right now." She gazed at him in that moment, a look of bewilderment crossing her face. Then her gaze sharpened. "My name is Miles Bradford," he stated. "This company is mine." Wendy's jaw clenched, yet she remained unyielding. "He stated that you have been taking damaged candy, repackaging it, and sending it out as if it were a pristine product. You have instilled a sense of fear in employees, leading them to remain quiet. You warned that hours would be reduced for anyone who dared to question you, and just now you dismissed someone because you disapproved of her jacket's appearance." "Let's take a moment," she suggested, standing up from her seat. "You're receiving numerous accounts from others. Individuals distort reality. You're familiar with the situation. I noticed you meticulously wrap lemon chews by hand. They were placed in the cleared stock. You instructed employees to refrain from reporting injuries. A climate of apprehension has been fostered on this floor. You just embarrassed an employee in front of half the break room for not having a clean jacket. We maintain our standards," she asserted. "This is not a charitable endeavor. Without the enforcement of discipline, performance declines significantly." "That's not fear, that's strategy." "No," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "That is unacceptable behavior." He faced the door, swung it open, and gestured for Ellis and the HR representative to enter, a composed woman clad in a navy blazer. They entered without a sound. Miles announced that this would take effect immediately. "Your position has been terminated. The exit process will be handled by HR. Please refrain from speaking to any employees or re-entering the production floor." "This is absolutely absurd," Wendy exclaimed sharply. "You have no idea what it requires to achieve goals in this place. You find yourself in your workspace, immersed in a sea of figures. Do you really believe that's how a company is run? I created this company from the ground up, he stated, and I achieved that without deceiving customers or intimidating my employees. Wendy parted her lips to voice her thoughts once more, yet the HR representative softly placed a hand on her elbow. She suggested we step outside to talk. They departed in silence. Miles found himself alone in the vacant office. The stillness weighed, more than the clamor ever could. He stepped back onto the floor. Some workers had halted their tasks midway, while others lingered close to the machines. They had witnessed Wendy exit. They had observed Ellis and HR trailing behind. At that moment, he felt their eyes upon him. He removed his gloves, moved to the center of the room and elevated his voice just enough to cut through the background noise of the machines. Miles Bradford, he introduced himself. I established this company. I've spent the past few days observing the inner workings of this place. No one stirred. I witnessed occurrences that have no place in any professional environment. Individuals hesitant to voice their concerns, safety measures overlooked, and the integrity of products undermined. That stops here. Tyra advanced from the packaging line, her arms folded across her chest. He nodded, acknowledging your complete ownership of this place. Indeed, she surveyed the surroundings of the room. So, you witnessed it all? I certainly did. Hector from maintenance approached. Are you going to take care of it? Indeed, Miles responded. From this day forward, he directed his attention to Ellis. Immediate action is required to bring in more staff. Enough with the double shifts. Say goodbye to makeshift repairs on malfunctioning equipment. I request a comprehensive audit of all boxes that have been cleared for repackaging over the past 60 days. Ellis nodded, swiftly jotting down notes. This week, we will implement a rotation system to ensure everyone receives proper safety training, with paid time off instead of deductions. All individuals with outstanding injuries should reach out to HR by the close of business today. He gazed at Marla, her wrist secured in a makeshift brace crafted from a folded cloth and tape. You're receiving medical care, he remarked, at the company's expense and compensated time off until a physician gives you the all clear. She gazed at him, taken aback. To the young woman who was sent home this morning, he mentioned that they would be contacting her directly. Such treatment is entirely unacceptable in this environment. No one applauded. It felt as though the atmosphere transformed, as if the very essence of the space had changed, though this was no cinematic scene. Shoulders, relaxed, gaze elevated. Individuals exchanged glances, not solely focused on the devices. As the ground began to shift once more, Miles discreetly drew Ellis to the side. He suggested placing Tyra and Hector in temporary oversight roles. They have gained confidence in this place. We will temporarily bring in seasoned managers from other locations until we are able to promote from within. Would you like to discuss that with HR? Just get it done. Ellis gave a brief nod once more, before heading off to organize the next steps. Miles lingered, observing as the lines began anew. He had no reason to be anywhere else, not just yet. By the next Monday, Facility 9 had come under new management, albeit for a limited time. Ellis came back accompanied by 2 senior operations leaders from different plants to ensure stability on the floor, while HR had placed a compliance officer on site for a 2-week observation phase. The supervisor's office remained shrouded in darkness. The absence of anyone at Wendy's desk was a deliberate choice. Miles showed up shortly after dawn, wearing his typical jeans and collared work shirt, without any disguise or vest. The same workers who had recognized him as Doug now perceived him for who he truly was. A few gave slight acknowledgements, others continued their tasks, oblivious to their surroundings. That was acceptable. Respect wasn't granted merely due to his name appearing on the company letterhead. He would need to prove himself once more. He stepped onto the caramel line, a space left conspicuously empty by Grover's absence. The team was putting forth their utmost effort, yet synchronization was lacking. The roller came to a halt on 2 occasions and ultimately the printhead failed. Instead of pushing through, Tyra thoughtfully shut down the system and reported it for maintenance. She took it upon herself. Miles positioned himself next to her. The printhead has finally succumbed. Yesterday afternoon, she remarked. securing a bolt on the guide rail. We have been manually labeling ever since, more deliberate yet more refined. It will be substituted by Thursday. The purchase order has been signed off by me. She cast a fleeting look in his direction. You continue to be present, still by my side. There were doubts among us about your return after you revealed everything. I didn't arrive here to showcase my talents. I arrived to mend what I allowed to fall apart. She gave a brief nod, then moved aside to allow Hector to complete the adjustment of the belt tensioner. Later that morning, Miles found himself in the break room alongside Marla, her wrist now supported by a sleek compression brace. She approached with care, yet she did not shy away from him. "You really shouldn't be working yet," he remarked, observing her as she carefully unwrapped a sandwich. "The doctor has approved me for light-duty work. They mentioned I can't lift more than 10 pounds, yet I'm capable of training new hires. We have 2 arriving this afternoon. Do you really believe you're prepared to take on the role of a coach?" She paused, contemplating. "If they aren't showing up just to be scolded, then yes, I believe I can manage it." He nodded. She leaned back slightly, her gaze unwavering. "I never expected owners to pay attention to details like that. I didn't used to." That afternoon, Miles strolled along the loading dock with Ellis, clipboard in hand. The outgoing pallets bore new labels, with products now scanned through a recently implemented double-check system from the weekend. Each box underwent scrutiny from 2 pairs of eyes prior to being shipped out. There will be no exceptions. Ellis mentioned that Tyra has already caught 3 batches that weren't sealed properly. She marked him for repack, not rewrap. Genuine repack featuring new pulls. Excellent, that's precisely how it ought to have been from the start. The inventory is set to experience a decline. I'd prefer to forfeit $20,000 in product than compromise. A customer's trust? Ellis nodded, then paused. Are you interested in discussing Wendy? There was no request for an appeal. She simply didn't ask for it. Exited silently, leaving no words behind. HR is finalizing her file today. No further action is needed. Excellent, Miles remarked. We won't waste any more time on her. Before departing from the dock, he hesitated. What happened to the girl she rejected, Carly? Human Resources has made contact. She believed she had lost her job. She was not. She's coming back. Tomorrow marks the beginning of the first shift. Purchase a jacket for her. She will have 3 options to select from. As the day drew to a close, Miles ascended the stairs to the catwalk overlooking the production floor. From that vantage point, he had a clear view of it all. The caramel line moved at a leisurely yet consistent pace. The fruit chews were relocated to a different belt, featuring updated calibration. The lemon line, the very one where he had observed flawed products being processed, was now paused for cleaning and retooling. He observed Tyra as she moved gracefully with a clipboard in hand, pausing at each station, conducting her checks quietly and efficiently. The workers indeed reacted. Hector was at the maintenance bench, immersed in a motor casing, instructing a junior tech on executing a cold start diagnostic. Marla stood next to 2 eager teens by the labeling machine, softly adjusting their hand positions and guiding them through the steps. Everyone appeared to be managing their tasks effortlessly. Everyone appeared calm. Ellis approached him from behind. The payroll situation remains constrained, he remarked. We are unable to bring in complete replacements for every position immediately. I'm not requesting that you do. We'll proceed with onboarding in phases, but we will not compromise on safety again. Have you ever grasped it? Miles lingered for an additional 10 minutes, observing and attuning his ears to the surroundings. That evening, he convened a gathering in the dusty training room, the one that had remained untouched for months. News traveled quickly, and by 5:30, more than 30 employees had settled in. No one had been compelled. No sign-in sheets were present. They have just arrived. Miles stood at the front, unarmed by any script or slideshow. He stated that he wasn't there to deliver a speech. You've all heard quite enough of those. No one found it amusing. Yet, everyone remained. This venture began in a humble garage, where my brother and I embarked on the sweet journey of crafting candy. We managed to sell our first batch to a gas station that was initially reluctant to take it. It took us a full year to reach the point of breaking even. I felt a deep sense of pride in what we created, not due to its perfection, for it lacked that, but because it was genuine. It was genuine in its essence. He scanned the room, locking gazes with those present. At some point I became disconnected from the true state of my plants. I allowed data and statistics to take precedence over individuals. I allowed a place like this to operate without ever inquiring about the experience of working here. He paused. I take full responsibility for that. The room remained still, devoid of shifting chairs or the sound of coughs. He went on, I won't be able to resolve this in just one visit. Yet, I will continue to be present. I will continue to listen. Ellis and I are launching a worker feedback program next week, and it can be anonymous if you prefer. Your input will shape our future direction. It's not solely about the end product, but the process behind its creation. A figure in the rear lifted a hand. What occurs when you depart once? More, I shall return frequently without prior notice, and I won't be alone in this. Every plant is receiving unexpected walkthroughs, not to catch anyone, but to learn and maintain our integrity. Another hand was raised. Are you planning to do this? At all the facilities? Indeed, this was the initial one, far from the end. Following the meeting, a few employees stayed behind to seek clarification. Tyra remained silent until the throng dispersed. Did you really mean it? She inquired. Everything, she gave a slight nod. Let us assist in selecting the next supervisor. Don't bring in someone from the outside. It's time for us to cast our votes. He acted without a moment's pause. By Friday, you will have 3 candidates ready for consideration. Select the one you have confidence in. She crossed her arms. We shall. Later that night, Miles found himself parked in his truck outside the facility, the engine silent, his gaze fixed on the building's flickering sign. So a week ago he entered the room, adopting a guise that was not his own. Once more he was departing, leaving his name in the past, yet this time he was fully aware. He felt no sense of pride. He felt incomplete. He sensed a weight of obligation, and that was precisely how it ought to be.